Hello and welcome to my latest weekly video news from Madison's. Well, I'm so sorry I didn't get one to you last week. It was half term and got caught up in the usual childcare conundrum. And boy, what a week to have not reported to you on with what has been going on. When I last spoke to you, it was wondering about what the appointment of Jeremy Hunt as the Chancellor would do. And since then, we have another new Prime Minister, 3 in a year. So Rishi Sunak, Chancellor before, who steered us through the pandemic as the Chancellor, Boris's kind of right-hand man in many ways, has now become the PM. So a much more cautious approach from Rishi. He was always advocating that there needs to be real control around public spending, certainly no cuts to taxation, and that was very much what his pledge was all about. Liz Truss always saying she was going to cut taxes. Actually, the markets certainly saw that coming to a degree. So a big part of what Rishi's been trying to do, quite frankly, initially is just wind back the clock of what happened when Liz Truss announced that Kwasi Kwarteng announced the mini budget on the 23rd of November. Because what was seen to see from that mini budget was how much impact it had into the mortgage market, which in turn caused a real lack of confidence in the economy, and of course the whole sterling issue going on around it, which affected the bond market so heavily. So within 3 days of Rishi coming to power, the 5-year swap rate, that's the rate at which banks borrow money from other banks hence swap. The 5-year swap rate was back to pretty much what it was, but just before that mini budget. Not to what it was before Liz Truss came to power. As I've said, she had been saying that she was going to cut taxes, and the markets were predicting that that would cause some uncertainty around the mortgage market. So the swap rate had been rising, then it really peaked post that mini budget, and that's what caused a lot of lenders to withdraw their rates. They simply couldn't get a handle on what the long-term borrowing rate from other banks was. So that had returned pretty much to normal. And the bond market, the other big thing that got affected, that's basically how much investment we get into the UK government. They basically issue gilts. You pay money for a gilt, they'll pay you interest for holding that, and the bond market really crashed after that mini budget because sterling did so badly, and that was back to almost what it was pre-mini budget. So certainly you could say that within a very quick time he has stabilised that ship. The bigger question, of course, will be what will happen to mortgage rates over the longer term. Bank of England are meeting this Thursday, is it? Yeah, 3rd of November, which will be Thursday, and we are expecting to see a 0.75% increase. That will be the highest increase for 33 years. We'll see rates going from 2.25% to 3%. Expected to be a split vote. There are other central banks around the world that have found that those big rates are those big rate rises are not favourable. So the Central Bank of Canada only increased by 0.5% at their last committee meeting. So it will be interesting to see if they do stick to that 0.75 prediction. You might be thinking, therefore, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to my mortgage? You're only really going to feel the pain from that if you're on a tracker mortgage. If you're on a fixed rate, obviously your rates will stay the same. And if you've recently taken out a new fixed rate, you'll notice no difference as well, because the banks have been pricing in this expected rate rise for some time. And so it is expected there'll be more rate rises. Bank of England furiously trying to control inflation and get inflation back to a single-digit level. And of course, it's that mortgage rate rise looking forward to next year which will dampen property prices. There's no doubt about it. 1.8 million 5-year fixed rate mortgages coming up for maturity, and be interesting to see how those borrowers adjust to those much, much higher interest rate payments. We're just not going to see the interest rate environment of around 1%. So anybody who's on a fixed rate at that level is going to have a dramatic increase by the time they come to refix their rate. So lots ahead. Prices next year, some economists thinking that they will drop in the world of housing, others thinking they'll be stabilised because we do enjoy full employment, and interest rates still at a fairly decent low level, just higher than what we've been used to, and still demand slightly outstripping supply. So it will be interesting to see what happens to prices next year. I'm not predicting a massive crash, certainly. I am thinking there will be a mini recession because our disposable income will be hit. But I think prices will certainly stabilise and drop in real terms against inflation, definitely. Well, of course, with Rishi coming in, Michael Gove became the new housing secretary, and developers around the country did a collective groan on that piece of news. So he's got a really bad impression of developers. It's called them a cartel in the past. And one of the things he wanted to do was to introduce an unlimited liability for cladding. Of course, there's all these high-rise buildings following the Grenfell disaster, and developers have had a real responsibility to sort those out and get those safe for the residents. And he wanted to create an unlimited liability for developers to put right any problems, which just a nightmare for developers. Simon Clarke and Greg Clark, the two housing secretaries that followed him, trying to unwind many of those really punitive measures, and they had got some way towards that. But with Michael Gove now back in power, developers are dreading to see what happens there. So lots of change going on at the top, and as ever, I will keep you posted. Well, a lovely property that I have just launched to market, Jubilee Cottages. I really, really like this one. It's on the edge of the Ashdown Forest. It's been beautifully looked after by the current owners. They've created a lovely wraparound first floor extension, which really combines well with the original period charm of the property and some lovely contemporary additions. Really beautiful flagstone walls. So yeah, it's a beauty of a property, great location, short drive from Crowborough, edge of the Ashdown Forest. If you would like to see it, do give us a call. And of course, a lot going on this weekend as usual. Halloween out the way, bonfire night coming this weekend, lots going on in around the area. I live a short walk from Denorlan, so I'll probably be going to Denorlan Park this year. But earlier in the day on Saturday, the Repair Cafe comes back for its monthly stint. It's great. It's hosted by a really good friend of mine, Chris, and he carols a number of volunteers to meet and fix your broken items. It's a really good atmosphere, really great vibe there. My father, before he's severely affected by dementia as he is now, was a master clocks craftsman, could repair any clock. He'd have loved to be involved in that, could do so much as well, radios, anything, most practical genius men I've ever had the pleasure to know in my life. So he'd have loved it, and it's a like-minded group of people that would be there. So 10 till 1 in the Trinity Theatre, the Repair Cafe this Saturday. I hope you have a good week, enjoy bonfire, stay safe, keep your pets indoors, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.